Hello everyone, and thank you for joining the PharmaMar Full Year Results 2025. My name is Gabrielle, and I will be coordinating your call today. During the presentation, you can register a question by pressing star followed by 1 on your telephone keypad. If you change your mind, please press star followed by 2 on your telephone keypad. I will now hand over to your host, José Luis Moreno, Head of Capital Markets and Investor Relations. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Gabrielle, and good morning to everyone. And thank you for joining us for today's PharmaMar earnings conference call to discuss our 2025 financial results. On the call with me today are María Luisa de Francia, Chief Financial Officer, Luis Mora, Managing Director of PharmaMar, and Pascal Besman, the Senior Vice President of Strategic Development. After our comments, we'll open the floor for your questions. And before we begin, please note that certain statements made during this call might constitute forward-looking statements, and these statements are based on current expectations, and actual results might differ materially from those projected. A full safe harbor statement is available on the corporate presentation on our website, and together with the press release and the results report issued this morning. We undertake no obligation to update these statements except as required by the applicable law. All right. Well, I'm pleased to say that 2025 was a very strong year for the company with clear progress, both strategically and financially. Strategically, a key milestone in 2025 was the U.S. approval of Zepzelca as first-line maintenance therapy in October. And this, of course, represents an important step for patients and a meaningful catalyst for the business. Financially, we delivered very strong, very solid performance. Revenues grew 27% year-on-year, reflecting strong execution and the increased scale of our business. That top-line growth translated into a significant step in profitability, with EBITDA up by roughly 5 times versus 24, and net income up 187% year-on-year. Importantly, we achieved these results ahead of the expected European approval for Zepzelca, which, if granted, it should provide an additional tailwind to revenues and further reinforce our growth trajectory. And with that, I'll hand over to María Luisa to walk you through the financials in more detail, and then Luis Mora will update you on our development plans for the years ahead. María Luisa?
Thank you, José Luis. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us in the 2025 results conference call. Regarding the financial statements for the year just ended, we would like to highlight the following points. First, a substantial increase in revenue from all of the company's sources of income: sales plus 20%, royalties plus 4%, and licensing revenue 66%. We expect this trend to continue in 2026, with growth in sales due to the potential approval of Zepzelca for Europe, and also growth in royalties due to the approval of Zepzelca as a first-line maintenance treatment last October, which will increase sales for our partners in the U.S. in 2026. Another point is the maintenance of R&D expenditure at the same level as last year and in line with our expectations for next year, with the projects we are involved in, which Luis Mora will detail below. We had also a slight increase in operating expenses, for example, in commercial expenses, where activities have been carried out to prepare for the eventual launch of Zepzelca in Europe in 2026. This increase in operating expenses, has been partially netted out by the European grants obtained for the Sylentis project. All the above has led to EBITDA of 68 million euros, approximately 5 times that of the previous year, as José Luis said before, and to a net profit of 75 million euros. Finally, and also noteworthy, is the generation of operating cash flow amounting to 53 million euros. This has enabled us to close the year with cash and financial investment of 168 million euros, while debt remains at similar levels to 2024. This financial situation enables us to continue with our ongoing projects without any pressure, as Luis Mora is going to explain right now. And I pass the floor to Luis Mora.
Okay, thank you, Maria Luisa. 2025 has been a great year for PharmaMar, with significant milestones achieved for both patients and the company. We obtained the approval in the United States and Switzerland for Zepzelca in first-line maintenance of small cell lung cancer. The compound was licensed to Merck for Japan, and both the pivotal trials, Lagoon and Saludo trials, continued successful according to the schedule. We also submitted the registration dossier for Zepzelca in Europe for first-line maintenance of small cell lung cancer, and the compounds P54 and PM534 are continuing their development. The total revenue, as Maria Luisa described, has grown by 27%. I would like to highlight the growth of Zepzelca in Switzerland and especially in France under the early use model with a 31% increase. This clearly demonstrates that Zepzelca is changing the treatment paradigm for the patients. I also want to highlight to include Yondelis raw material sales to our partners with a 20% growth compared with 24, as well as the growth in Yondelis royalties in the USA, which have more than double compared with 2024. This means that Yondelis continues to grow, being considered a standard treatment for soft tissue sarcoma. In Europe, where there are already 6 approved generic versions of Yondelis, the unit sales have grown by approximately 4% compared with 24. This helps us to introduce in the future lurbinectedin in leiomyosarcoma in first-line treatment. Regarding Zepzelca in the United States, the royalties have decreased by 12% compared with 24 for 2 reasons. One is the exchange rate euro-US dollar, which had a negative impact 7.5%, and another to enter a new competitor into the market. However, in this last quarter, we have seen a significant change that we expected will continue to grow in 2026 with the approval obtained in first-line small cell lung cancer maintenance therapy. Finally, looking ahead to the next 12 months, important milestones are on the horizon that will be transformative for the company. The European registration dossier for Zepzelca for first-line maintenance of small cell lung cancer is currently under evaluation by the EMA, and we expected their opinion likely in the first quarter of this year. If this is the case, and given the European Commission timelines, we could begin marketing the product in some European countries in the second half of this year. In fact, our entire marketing, sales, market access, medical affairs, logistics team is working intensively on this. We expect it to grow in commercial expenditure in 30% over the next 2 years. The Lagoon trial for second-line treatment in small cell lung cancer is expected the top-line results in the second half of this year. If the results are positive in either arm, where the Zepzelca is administered either as a single agent or in combination with irinotecan, it will lead to another registration dossier likely in the second half of this year for the second line, and this is the objective of the company. To any patient with a small cell lung cancer will have the opportunity to take lurbinectedin in first on the second line. The Saludo trial, which compares Zepzelca plus high-dose doxorubicin, Zepzelca plus low-dose doxorubicin against doxorubicin alone, is expected to complete enrollment in the first half of this year ahead of the schedule. We expected the results in the first half of 27, and if positive, they will lead another registration dossier in 2027 with potential approval in 28. The other 2 products we have in the clinical development pipeline, PM54, has already reached the recommended dose in both infusion regimens included in the separated phase 1 trials, and we expected to show the data in the next ESMO Congress in Madrid in October. As we have observed, very manageable safety and promising efficacy. This encourages us to begin a very ambitious plan in 2026 with expansion as a single agent for different tumor types, as well as initiating combination trial with another chemotherapy agents and immunotherapy. In fact, the FDA already approved the new IND for this combination trial with immunotherapy at the end of 2025. Similarly, PM534 is in dose escalation into different phase 1 trials with 2 different infusion regimens, and we expected to begin expanding one of 2 regimens to different tumor types in the second half of this year. In summary, 25 we executed as planned, and 26 will be a transformative year for the company with significant milestones both commercially and in the development for our compounds. Now, I pass the microphone to Pepe. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. And with this, we conclude our speech today, and we open the floor to questions. Gabriel?
Thank you very much. To ask a question, please press star followed by 1 on your telephone keypad now. If you change your mind, please press star followed by 2. When preparing to ask your question, please ensure your device is unmuted locally. Our first question is from Joseph Hedden from RX Securities. Your line is now open. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my questions. It's been the first quarter since Zepzelca's label was expanded for first-line use. So 90 million sales in the US. Can you just tell us how that compares to your internal expectations, and perhaps any feedback that you've received from US docs or any kind of usage metrics other than the sales that you may have? Thanks.
Hi, Joe. Pascal here. We're not going to tell you what our projections are, and Jazz doesn't give you what their projections are. So unfortunately, there's not much that I can help you with. And in terms of inventory levels that you're asking, that's not something that we make public, other than if there was a situation where there was a problem with inventories, then we would feel that it would be material. But obviously, we were expecting to see an uptake after the October FDA approval in the first-line maintenance setting. That happened with a 13% quarter-over-quarter bump, which we're pleased to see, and we expect, personally, we as PharmaMar expect that to continue, as Jazz indicated on their call earlier in the week.
Okay, thanks, Pascal. Fair enough. And then perhaps if I could have one on Yondelis. It was interesting to see that US sales climbing again there after the NCCN inclusion. Do you expect that trend to continue through this year of having a much better year with royalties coming from J&J sales there?
Yeah, we expect that it continues to grow if you compare 26 with 25. In fact, from the inclusion in the NCCN guidelines, the combination Yondelis plus doxorubicin and first-line leiomyosarcoma, the use of Yondelis is increasing dramatically, and we expect it to continue to grow in 2026.
Okay, thank you. And then perhaps if you could just reconfirm your expectations for generic entry for Yondelis in the US.
I don't know. This is not, remember, it's a J&J territory, it's not PharmaMar territory. Then we don't know where they will potentially enter the generics, so we don't know.
Okay, thanks very much.
But I can advise you, not in principle, not in 2026.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joseph. Our next question is from Rowan Ropalin from Santander. Your line is now open. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I have a few questions. The first one is on the potential approval of Zepzelca in first-line maintenance setting in Europe. Are there any updates on the pricing negotiation process that we should be aware of? Have you already initiated discussions with the relevant national authorities in key European markets? The second one was concerning the M&A and in licensing. How is the process progressing at this stage? So should we expect any concrete developments or announcements this year? And that would be everything. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said in my speech several minutes ago, we expected, accordingly, the calendar from the EMA opinion, and the end of this quarter for first-line small cell lung cancer maintenance therapy. That is we expected. And then, accordingly, the European Commission timelines, they have 2 months after the EMA opinion to send us the authorization for commercialization in this territory. This is the timeline. Regarding the pricing, the procedure in all the European countries, you can start the submission dossier for pricing not before the EMA opinion, because at the end of the day, you negotiate the pricing and reimbursement from one particular label, and the label is included in the EMA opinion. Then you can negotiate before you have this label, okay? But in fact, this is all the PharmaMar team regarding this matter is working more than 1 year ago. Then, in order to be ready, the dossiers for submission immediately after the EMA opinion. And regarding the licensing in, okay, we can disclose the items and the process. We have some options in the table, and when we will arrive some type of agreement, we will disclose. Okay, thank you.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rowan. We will now move on to text questions, so I will hand over to the management team. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Now we'll have some written questions that we've received, and we can start with these ones about Zepzelca. The first one says, now that the FDA has approved lurbinectedin as a first-line maintenance therapy for small cell lung cancer, could we expect significant increase in U.S. royalties by 2026?
Yeah, that is what we expected in the second line. You compare with the first-line maintenance therapy. First of all, the number of cycles in the INFORTE trial, if we compare with the basket trial, is quite a double, and is about 30% more the patients potentially in this disease. Then we expect the royalties will be growing across 2026.
And we have another question about some regulatory issues, also regarding with Zepzelca. Could you please confirm whether INFORTE has been officially approved in Uruguay and Ecuador, as mentioned by Adium?
Yeah, Uruguay was approved in the last quarter 2025, and Ecuador in this year, January.
Well, we have another question also in regulatory issues. Has the dossier for INFORTE been submitted in the Japanese authorities for approval?
Well, I want to remember it's not our territory. We'll license the drug to Merck, and this is the Merck task. And when Merck decides to disclose or not, this process is a Merck decision. It's not PharmaMar decision.
Okay. More about pricing. When do you anticipate receiving reimbursement for INFORTE in Switzerland?
Well, we are in the negotiation process actively. This is a normal process. We expect it in the middle of the year, finalize this process in order to have the price and reimbursement for first-line maintenance therapy. But I want to advise you that from the commercial point of view, we are already selling in first line, but we're waiting for final pricing and reimbursement.
Well, in that regard, there's another question of the same person that he asked about if we could say anything about the pricing that we have in Switzerland for Bayer.
No, it's a negotiation process. You can't disclose.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We have other questions about all the molecules in the pipeline, PM54. So the FDA has approved IND for the new phase 1/2 of PM54 with immunotherapy. Since the trial targets multiple tumor indications, could we expect to include several immunotherapies as well? Or?
Well, we are in the decision process. When we will start the trial, we will announce. There's several options, like, in the synergistic effect is already demonstrated with this type of compounds. We have several options, and we will start the trial. We will disclose.
Right.
Okay, could be atezolizumab, pembrolizumab, durvalumab, etc., etc.
Right. In this regard, there are also questions about what's the time frame when we could start. You've mentioned that we'll start this year. What can we expect about starting point and end point?
Yeah, we are already prepared everything, the protocol. We already contacted with the centers to start the trial, and we expected to start the trial in the first half of this year.
All right. We have a question about Sylentis, and if you could provide any update on SIL 1801, and specifically if the phase 1b trial is expected to start shortly.
Well, when the SIL 1801 was disclosed, the data, the team are still analyzing the data. They are worked so hard in the preclinical setting in order to be focused in the next trial in some subtype of this disease. And when we will start the trial, we will announce. We are working in that.
Wow. Thank you. We're receiving more questions. Here's another one. R&D investment decreased from 103 million to 95 this year. Does this reflect a natural tailing off late-stage trial costs, or is a strategic decision to be more selective in early-stage compounds like PM534, PM54?
No, this is a normal one. When you have several phases 3 ongoing, or you finalize the phases 3, the investment in R&D up down, in fact, driven the phases 3 ongoing. But according to Maria Luisa's speech, we expected the similar numbers in 2026 and 2025. But this is the major reason.
Okay. We have another one about Zepzelca. With the FDA approval of Zepzelca in combination with atezolizumab, how does management expect this change in treatment paradigm to impact the long-term peak sales estimates compared to the previous second-line monotherapy use?
Well, to echo what Luis said recently, maybe I'll add a little bit more. Out of 100 patients who are diagnosed with extensive stage small cell lung cancer, about 95% are treated in first-line induction. About 75% have been seen to be treated in first-line maintenance, about 50 to 60% in second line. So right away, you can see by having the first-line maintenance label, there are more patients in the pool. In addition, as Luis also mentioned, the number of cycles that is seen on a mean or median basis is about double, from 4 to 8, moving from second line to first line. And a third key point is to consider market share between atezolizumab and durvalumab, which are both approved, insofar that these two drugs are widely seen as Coke and Pepsi, especially in small cell, interchangeable duopoly. And therefore, if atezo plus lurbinectedin is better than atezo, it's seen that atezo lurbinectedin is better than durva. In addition to that, in terms of market share potential, atezolizumab has a version that's been approved in the US, UK, and Europe and Switzerland of a subcutaneous, whereas durvalumab does not and will not have one. So with all that said, and with the caveat that we're not making predictions that Jazz hasn't themselves made, we expect sales to be improved starting this year as they were in the last quarter after the approval in October.
Thank you. Thank you, Pascal. We have received, talking about Jazz, we have received some other questions about the patent situation in the U.S. but we cannot answer these questions. I guess these are more questions for our partner, Jazz, who's doing a great job in the U.S. There's a final question here. Says the company spent 34 million on share buybacks in 25. Given the cash position, how is management balancing further buybacks against potential M&A or licensing opportunities to diversify the oncology portfolio? I'll take this one. we do not, from a company, we do not see either doing one or another. The fact that we're doing share buybacks program does not mean that we cannot consider, as Luis has mentioned now, in-license deals or any other deals. So we could do both, and we, happy to look at everything. Talking about share buybacks, if we're going to do further buybacks, as you know, we decide that on a yearly basis, same as the dividend policy. From our perspective, from the company perspective, our first priority is investment in R&D. And once we've covered all that and we have room for more stuff like, dividend increase or the share buyback, then we decide on the year. But again, the fact that we do additional share buybacks, if we do it or whatever, does not mean that we're not, going to consider in license agreements or M&A or, any other deal. And I think these are all questions that we received in written. So in summary, just to wrap up, our 2025 results demonstrate robust growth driven by rising Zepzelca revenues and a meaningful advance across our clinical development portfolio. And in addition, we expect a strong flow of important news in the near term. And with this, we conclude our call today, and we would like to thank you all for joining us. And, Gabrielle.
Thank you. This concludes today's PharmaMar Full Year Results 2025. Thank you for joining. You may now disconnect your line.